Hey, this is Dominic, and this is your home for the cutting-edge conversations on optimizing your personal performance, lighting up your sex life, and living a purpose-driven life of your own design.
These are the topics that Dominic and I have both struggled with in our own lives and still don't always get right. This is Bryan. Welcome to the Great Man Podcast.
You know, some of our favorite episodes in this podcast involve very little planning for Bryan and I, which is a nice change of pace because some of the episodes involve a lot of prep work and research leading up to the recording time. But instead, on days like today, we get to invite a man that we respect and love on the show, who's doing the inner work. We can hit the record button and simply see what the hell comes up. And today we're bringing on a guest who I believe we're popping his podcast cherry because I don't think he's ever done a podcast before. Someone that I consider to be a best friend, Keith Bracci. Now, Keith is a guy who I know and love. I know that you guys are going to feel the same way because Keith's just a regular guy, right? He's not someone who's a teacher of inner work. He's a man who found the path a few years ago after being an extremely successful entrepreneur, business owner, a husband, a father to 2 young daughters under the age of 10, super competitive and very achievement oriented in business and sports, but also one of those rare guys who is emotionally open, like who's connected to his heart. And he found a lot of inner healing from that loud inner critic that had been dominating his life for most of his life, and finding a sense of passion and purpose alongside the achievement that had really kind of dictated most of his life once he found the inner work. And so I think you're going to really love his perspective. He's a guy who can jam on almost any topic. He's also one of the anchors of the Great Man Mastermind. And one of the biggest contributions to our group, and you'll hear this on the show today, is that he's always willing to go first when it comes to revealing a wound in his life or sharing an insecurity or being fearless in going to the more emotionally challenging topics of discussion. And from my perspective, as a guy who facilitates spaces for men, I've always found men like Keith who have the courage to reveal first as being so invaluable to the group experience because it inspires other men to dig deeper and share more of themselves. So today you get the benefit of having 3 dudes who constantly open their kimonos, I guess metaphorically speaking, and we dig deep into our lives to share some of our perspectives on some of the most important men's topics of today. For example, in this episode, we talk about why and how so many men build our entire lives around the pursuit of achievement while never thinking to build in as a priority, feeling a sense of passion, purpose, and inner peace into our lives, and how those things like purpose, passion, and inner peace elude us when we don't consciously make them a part of our journey. Keith talks about how to emotionally hold powerful masculine space for our children and our romantic relationships, especially when we don't know the answer to their problems or we can't fix their situation. And as men, we're constantly looking to fix or solve problems. How to hold powerful masculine space when we don't have the answers. And speaking of problem solving, we have a great discussion about why our thinking/intellectual mind is often the slowest and least accurate and least reliable part of ourselves to rely upon in certain settings, when we can start to rely upon our feelings and emotions that give us much deeper insight into what the solution to a problem could be. We have a fascinating discussion about the mature signs of affection between platonic masculine men and how latent homophobia prevents men from bonding in both physical and emotional ways that keep an unnecessary distance between us that leads to loneliness in certain areas of our lives. And then we finish with a discussion about how doing inner work with other men, not just on our own, has accelerated and deepened our growth. All 3 of us, light years faster than going at it on our own. And as Bryan and I always say in the show, doing personal development on your own, it's slow, it's shallow, and it's incomplete. So we talk about how some of these inner work experiences with other men in masterminds and workshops, retreats, etc., have helped us to accelerate our growth in our lives and how it could do the same for you. So enjoy today's discussion, an unplanned conversation around men talking man stuff with my best friend, Keith Bracci.
The first time I met Keith was at your retreat, Dominic. And one thing I love about Keith over the years that I've learned is his openness, his vulnerability. Now, when I met Keith, I wasn't quite there yet. So we were going around in the circle of men at this retreat of like, why are we here? And there's this guy across from me, probably wearing a green shirt. And he started saying, well, I'm here because I've been successful in business. And when I've reached that pinnacle, I find it fleetingly satisfying. And then I go conquer the next thing. And I accomplish that. And the feeling is fleeting. And in my head, I was killing Keith silently because I was like, oh, This motherfucker, like he's so successful. He has to come to a men's retreat because he's successful so many times. What a problem to have. What a dick. That was my first.
So please join us in welcoming this dick to our podcast, Keith Bracci.
Beautiful intro. Thanks, bud.
Yes. Love you, man.
We all remember one of the things that you said on top of that, Keith, was like, I don't know if I've ever really dreamt bigger than this. I wanted business success. I wanted some freedom in my life. You're an entrepreneur. You have a beautiful wife, 2 amazing daughters, and you hit it at a relatively young age, like before the age of 40. And I was like, well, then now what?
Now what? First of all, thanks for having me, guys. This is awesome. Super pumped for it. It had me thinking like, I never dreamt past here. I was supposed to get like a wife and some kids and a house and have a business and like, then just ride that for the next 40 years. I don't know. And my brain never went past that, and now that I'm here and like, it feels good. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like, okay, like I'm all satisfied. Let me just sit back and relax. It felt really empty to not have any dreams and to not know what I was supposed to do next.
And Keith, I believe that was that 2016, Dom?
2017.
So like April-ish of 2017. Keith, what keeps you coming back to this work?
That weekend specifically, Dom brought something huge to me was passion. What are you passionate about? What do you connect with? What makes you feel alive? And then how do you incorporate more of that into your business, into your relationships, into your hobbies, into everything you do? And this way, I was all just bent on achievement. And okay, you get it. The road there was brutal because I had to grind to get there. And then once you get there, it feels good for like 10 seconds. And then what? It was a really kind of, repetitively empty existence. So connecting with that passion and opening my heart is the practice, is this men's work, is the inner work that I keep coming back for more because it's just expanding, from there.
Yeah, I can really relate to that, Keith. I mean, I know a lot of men can where, we prioritize from a young age being successful and achieving. I know you're a big athlete, like golf is your thing. And well, actually, that's how we ended up meeting was we ended up on the same softball team together through one of our really good friends, Lance, who we won a championship together on Team Thunderstruck, all that stuff, right?
I don't want to brag about it, but yeah.
Hey, well, we were kind of awesome back in the day for a fleeting moment on the softball fields of New York. Like success, achievement, winning, all things I love, but it kind of was like the only thing I prioritized. Like the thing that you just said about passion, like what lights your soul on fire? What makes your balls tingle?
Yeah, right.
Like a lot of us don't even ask that question. So we feel we have all these check boxes. But then what do we want to feel for the rest of our lives, 40, 50 years when we don't feel a fire burning? So what have been some of those things that you've been able to do over these last few years that have brought a sense of passion back into your life?
Yeah, for me, it all comes down to connection of one kind or another. For me personally, it's like helping other people or being helped by other people. Just that exchange is huge for me. Humor, laughing, just having a good time and figuring shit out, finding a new innovative way of approaching something. So these are the kind of the things that I've identified as they light me up and I bring them into my business. It's cool. My business was already structured that way. I just didn't even know it. You were talking about you were only focused on achievement. I didn't know what else you were supposed to focus on. I wasn't aware of some other thing to focus on, Now that I know, okay, bringing these things that make you feel good into it, I look at my business, I'm like, wow, I kind of structured it already to have a bunch of this stuff, but I also have a bunch of stuff that doesn't feel good. So how do I now reorganize this and get more of the good stuff and less of the stuff where I feel like I'm just smashing my head against the wall?
Keith, talk about how you've brought some of this passion into your work. I know for me, I'm trying to wear one hat called Bryan, but unfortunately, sometimes I wear multiple hats, and I have like men's group Bryan, and I have podcast Bryan, and I have then business Bryan, and then I have relationship with Becca Bryan, like, and I'm wearing all these hats. And oftentimes when I go into like business hat Bryan, I forget about some of the other stuff like that we've done in men's group that we talk about on the podcast. And I've been trying to merge these things into one. And I'm curious how you've done that.
Yeah, I think it goes to that like, almost higher purpose kind of thought of what does light you up, right? So if, for example, with me, it's connecting and helping people, right? So all those different hats you described, dad, Keith, businessman, Keith, husband, friend, they all want to help. So they're all the same kind of hat, so I just show up with, what can I do to help? What can I do to be open, be vulnerable, put it all on the table and like, hear what you need, hear what I need, and let's figure out how to get there.
And you can do that and still be successful in business.
So it's funny. Like I've had some consultants, and some really good mentors, and they've all pushed me towards this. And it didn't make sense how not cold calling and banging, just grind 50 calls a day, make a spreadsheet, that kind of mentality that got me successful. How they're like, no, don't do any of that. Sit back, relax, have some good combos. If it doesn't feel good, don't pick up the phone. And I'm like, but am I going to have business if I don't pick up the phone? They're like, just watch, and just the quality of my interactions and my presence with customers and with friends and how I'm showing up, business came. And I didn't believe it. And it took a while to let go, but it's very counterintuitive, but that's how it works apparently.
I remember watching your journey on that. So Keith's in the metals importing business, right? So like, what are the metals that you primarily import?
Aluminum for the most part.
Aluminum for like big construction projects, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I remember like for years, you were just kind of like, listen, my business is doing really well, but it could be so much better if I wasn't slacking off, right? So like in your mind, I remember like your solution was, I just need to get on the phone and make calls. I need to like cold call. I need to, but you hated the idea of cold calling. It was just
every minute of it,
right? So, but that was the solution because grinding it out, and that's like what we've been sold. And I remember watching you make your hires in like the consulting space to say, no, like, here's what you're really good at. Like, you're amazing at developing relationships. You're amazing at building a business that also supports your lifestyle. Because I don't know anybody who has the balance that you do. Like, you are there all the time for your 2 daughters, for your wife, and you have as much free time as you want to do men's group stuff, to do personal development stuff, to go on, like week-long trips to better yourself and still crush it in all of these areas. So like you figured out how to do that. And it seemed like this last element for you around like the last year of your business has exploded because you've started to align some of these other principles around like just what makes you uniquely good. And it was really like fostering the relationships, not trying to cold call new ones.
Yeah, right. Totally. The tipping point for me was building my team where, all right, what am I good at and what do I love? Okay, let me do that. Hire this next person. What are you good at? What do you love? Great. We need that spot. And put everyone in their spots where they love and they can enjoy the same kind of lifestyle of like going to be class mom, during the day and then coming home and doing some work and like that. Everyone has this beautiful balance and, that shift of like, I want to make $1 billion to I want to be in a team. I want to build the team of people that they can all enjoy this beautiful lifestyle and our clients can enjoy a beautiful lifestyle because we're taking care of them. And that electrifies me. Another $1 million doesn't, that doesn't get me electric.
It sounds like that's an outcome. Like live this, create what you want to create. And that's an outcome.
Right. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
That was a big shift for you, man. I remember you went from how do I make this much money to how do I build a team that's like doing what they love to do. And like, I want to be an employer of choice where these people who are on my team can live the life of their dreams where, they're collecting a great paycheck. They're making great contributions to my business, but also it allows them to live their lives. That lights me up. As soon as you made that shift, then everything started to kind of go up for you. So that's awesome. One of the other things that you've done remarkably well, and Bryan said this earlier, inside of our men's groups is like you share openly and transparently what's going on in your life. And one of the things that you've done as a gift, a service to our group is talk about your relationship with your father and how that impacted your life growing up, like what you got that you needed, what you didn't get that you wanted, and how that's affecting your fathering, your parenting with your two daughters. So maybe dive into a little bit of that, Keith. Like, where did you grow up? You know, that's a big part of your story. And what was your relationship with your father then and then now?
Yeah. So I grew up in Brooklyn, and my dad was, larger than life figure in my life. He grew up in Brooklyn as well, immigrant Italian father, construction, real hard dude. So crack the whip, do it this way. My word is law. And I remember my father telling me, he goes, listen, I love how my father, taught me and made me the man I am today, but I wish he had done it with more love. So my father did the same, hard ass, cracked the whip, but also hugged me, told me he loved me, and made sure I was secure in that. And that was his evolution, but my evolution down to my daughters is more, I didn't like getting the whip cracked on me, and it didn't feel good,
What form did that take, Keith? What forms did the cracking of the whip take for you?
Yeah, it was like it was imposing. It was physically intimidating. My dad's a big, strong guy. I was a street fighter growing up, and so all his stories are about him kicking someone's ass and getting his ass kicked, and here I am, this 8-year-old kid, tiny for my age. The last thing on my mind is being able to fight. This fight's going on all around me, and I'm terrified. And I'm terrified at home. And so I felt very intimidated at all times, and felt very small and unsupported, And so his intimidation was to get me to act, and it was effective in that way, but the consequences were too big in my mind. So I want to find a way to inspire my daughters to act without the intimidation, more with love, And the way I've done that more is kind of peeling back the curtain, as I like to say, showing them, hey, listen, you're running around, we're eating dinner. I need you to sit at the table. I've asked you to sit down and you're not. I don't know what to do. So I'm going to say, if you don't sit, I'm going to send you upstairs and you're going to have to sit in your room. I don't want to do that, but that's what I'm going to do. And they run around more, and I'm like, okay, you got to go upstairs now. And they're sad about it. And I hug them on the way upstairs. I'm sorry. I know this is rough. You had a choice. Hopefully next time you make the right choice. I'm doing this because I want you to be the best kid you can be, And I sit them in the room. So there's some explanation, and there's love. I'm not angry with them. I'm not like, you sit in your fucking chair or else, you know what I mean? Because I fucking told you to.
So you want to do that sometimes, but you don't because of the work that you've done.
But I don't do that.
Very
correct. There are strict boundaries, where they can feel power and strength and leadership, but it can be done with love. And it's done, I want to say, in a soft way, but not in the soft way because it's firm, because that boundary is strict, but it's done with love and understanding, and, they get it.
You have a great story. I think it was with your daughter, Ava, where she needed something. She was sad. You were holding her. I want you to tell the story because I think it's not just powerful for fathers. I think it's powerful for any guy who finds himself in a situation where he doesn't have a solution to someone's emotional problem.
Yeah.
And how to handle that situation with remarkable grace and masculine strength. Tell that story about what went down with Ava and how you handled it.
There's two of them. So I'll share both of them. The first one is, I'm putting her to bed, and
how old is she?
She probably at this point is, let's go 5. And, she's scared. I don't know. She thinks there's a monster in the closet or something that's, to me, irrational, in a way, but to a 5-year-old makes all the sense in the world. And she's crying and she can't go to sleep. And I want to go through all the things. There's no monster in the closet. Look, open the closet. Look, there's no monster. I want her to be very logical and rational. Right. And I want to fix it. I want to show her there's no monster. There's nothing to be scared of. Don't be scared. There's nothing to be scared. It's the exact opposite of what you should do. Validate, because validate how she's feeling. So I'm sitting there, I'm holding her, and we're on the rocking chair. I'm just kind of rocking her. So I didn't do any of these things. I've tried them in the past and they don't work. She walks away feeling unheard, unvalidated. Why do I feel so fucking scared if there's no monster in there? I still think there's one. So I'm sitting there holding her and I'm trying to think of a different approach, and I'm just rocking her and she's crying, and everything inside me is saying, tell her there's no monster, and there's a little voice in me saying, dude, that's not going to work. If it doesn't feel right, just shut up. Just shut up, right? And I'm sitting there, I'm rocking her, and I'm like, all right, she's scared. What does she need? She's scared. What does she need? She needs to feel safe. How's she going to feel safe? I don't know. I'm just rocking. Just shut the fuck up until you have something good. Unless you have something great, I'm just rocking and I'm just rocking. And I connected with my scared little boy. I remember him really well, and I've done a lot of work on that kid. And when my little boy's freaking out, he just needs a hug. He just needs, I got you. You're going to be okay. I love you. You're safe. He doesn't need to, like, you shouldn't be scared. That is the voice that, like, I usually have in my mind. You shouldn't feel this way. Feeling this way is stupid because it's not real. You know, has been my inner critic in the past. And so I sat there and I'm just holding her, Where does she need a hug? And that's what I'm doing. I'm hugging her. And within, I don't know, a minute and a half, you know, all those thoughts went through my head, felt like 10 hours, you know, it was like seconds, right? 60 seconds, 90 seconds. I just feel her go, You feel it all come out. She just needed a hug. How do you feel safer than just being in your father's embrace and feeling his strength?
Yeah.
And then she like lifted her head up and she's like, what are we doing tomorrow, Dad? You know, like it was over. You know?
See, what I love about that story, man, is it takes so much pressure off of us. Like I've always been taught that I need to make it go away. You know, I need to solve the person's problem, whether it's a 5-year-old, 55-year-old, the woman I'm dating, or a good friend of mine who comes to me with a problem. And I most times don't have the answer. Do you know what I mean? Like there is no, I don't have the information. I don't know what's going on in their minds, and I don't have the answer. But what you just described is this powerful ability to space hold the space. What is the emotion that she's feeling? She's scared. Okay, what does she need right now? She needs to feel safe. That's it. So all your job is to be there, this strong, sturdy force who could say, I get it. Let me hold you, whether it's physically or like, you know, emotionally in some way. Let me hold you. And then that 90 seconds later, the exhale and the nervous system relaxes. You know, how many times have you as a man brought a challenge to a friend of yours, like a guy that you really care about, and all you really wanted was just for them to like kind of listen to you? But then you get like machine gun fire worth of advice. You know, here's what you need to do. Here's the action you need to take. Here's blah, blah. And you walk away feeling like, fuck, that gave me nothing of what I wanted, you know?
Yeah, like I go into it thinking I want rapid fire solutions. I want solutions. And that's usually what I get. And then I walk away like, those solutions are stupid. That's not it, you know?
Yeah.
But the one, you know, a therapist actually once, I said something to him and he just went, that must have been really hard. And it was like, I didn't know that that's what I wanted to hear. You know, that validation. And it stuck with me years later. Like, that must have been so hard. And like, I don't know, I feel like that would almost feel patronizing to me in the past. You know what I mean? Of like, it's not that hard, but how do I fix it? But just that like acknowledgement and that pause, you know, and that connection, it is really what I seem to be looking for, even though I don't know that that's what I was looking for.
Keith, you're highlighting, sometimes it's hard to describe the benefits of doing inner work. And you're describing one that's so beautiful right now, which is, do we go in solution, give me advice, solved, next thing, solved, next thing, solved. And I know that feeling that you're describing when you're holding your daughter and you're like, solve the problem, tell her there's no monster. Like that voice would be screaming in my mind also. And it feels almost uncontrollable at times. But the inner work allows you to sit there like, what does she need? Let me connect with my inner child and let me just hold. And then the secondary benefit in all this is that you don't have to do anything. You can just sit there and enjoy the moment. Like enjoy that present moment of holding your daughter. Like I feel like, I know for me, there's so many times where I'm like in the solve it sort of mode and I'm not even there in the moment because I'm out thinking about how to solve this thing. And so what you described there, that moment of you just holding your daughter and not trying to solve it, and your mind not going a million miles an hour, like she can feel that too.
Totally. And believe me, I get it wrong plenty. You know, I get it wrong plenty. And like, you know, the second part of the story I want to say is like one time I'm with her and we got a puppy and she's in the backyard trying to walk it and the puppy's scratching her and running all over, keeps trying to run back in the house and she's overwhelmed. She's starting to cry and she's starting to get like frantic with it. Right. And I'm all right. What does she need right now? I'm thinking, I don't know. I don't fucking always know, like, I'm doing my best here. Right. So I grab her shoulders because she's like, the puppy, I don't know, and she's just like, kind of like almost hyperventilating. And I grab her shoulders. I'm like, Ava, stop it. Look at me. Like, just focus on me. You're okay. Puppy's okay. Like, and I just wanted to like snap her out of it because she was like thinking of a million different things. And I thought that was a good move. I don't know. I'm trying what I could try, right? And she looked at me and she kind of stopped being frantic for a second, but it wasn't comforting, And I walked away like going, I don't know, was that a good move? I don't even know. And she had left for like a trip with her mother for the weekend. And I remember calling her that night. I go, hey, Ava, when you were all over, like when we were with the puppy, and I said, stop it, How was that? Did that feel good? Did that work for you? Like I was trying to help you change your energy because you were frantic. I wanted to calm you down. Did that calm you down? And she's like, I don't know. I was like, do you think there'd be some other approach that would have worked there for you? And she was like, I don't know. So, but the point is, even though there was nothing really learned, but I feel like that moment of just letting her know that like, I'm trying, I'm there for you, I'm supporting you. I don't always get it right, but like redos are okay, I think is important.
I remember the ending to this story maybe better than you do right now.
Please.
because she came back to you later.
Oh, right.
So what was the clincher there? So that conversation did open something, even though in that moment she was like, I don't know. She did think about it. What did she come to you with later?
Thank you. So the ending of that convo was like, I want to be the best dad I can. So if there's ever a thing that you know of a way I could be a better father, please tell me. I want to know. And then like weeks later, she nervously comes up to me and she's like, hey, Dad, can I talk to you in the other room? I was like, sure. So we go in the other room. And she's like, remember when you said, if I could ever think of a way you could be a better dad? And she's really nervous. You could tell. She's like not looking me in the eye. This takes a lot of courage for, she's probably 7, 8 at this time. Like to like come to your father and say like, I know how you're fucking up and you need to step your game up in this way,
Yeah.
So she said, sometimes you ignore me. Sometimes I want to tell you something and you're not focused on me and it makes me feel bad. I'm like, right now, I could feel that. Like, wow, I've felt that before. I know what that feels like. That feels horrible to me. And I know in that moment before she wanted to show me something and I'm like on my phone, like texting a, business kind of thing. And I'm half paying attention to her. And my instinctive reaction was I wanted to go, no, I was just on the phone. Like discount what she's saying. I think 8 words got out of my mouth before I caught it.
Yep.
And I stopped. I said, wow, Ava, thank you so much for bringing that to me. And I hugged her. And I was like, getting ignored doesn't feel good at all. I've been ignored before. It really hurts. I never want you to feel that way. I connected with her. I validated how she was feeling, and then I just went on about like, I was so brave. Thank you. Like what a gift you gave to me to be a better father. I promise I'm looking you in the eye. I'm committing to you that I will, with every ounce of my being, make sure that never happens again. You made me better today. Thank you. And it was a beautiful exchange. And it's the kind of, going back to my father, like I would have loved to have that, that opportunity, that even just learning to like look at it that way, to like analyze how did that go down and how could it be better? That's the kind of relationship I want with her.
Keith, do you ever feel a disconnect between how you want to be and how you show up in those moments?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Totally.
So I feel like there's like a knowing, like I want to be different. And even I know how I want to be different, but it's just such an ingrained path that how we were growing up and our behaviors that it takes a significant awareness to change that path. And that with the opening that you gave your Ava and then Ava having the courage to come, like is that moment. And that's really beautiful.
Totally.
And what I love about your story, again, Keith, first of all, like Father of the Year type shit right there.
Well, again, I'm not telling all the stories where I fucked it up. So
those were actually the only 2 stories that he did right. So
it's like 2 good
let's go ahead and cut the podcast off right here.
Yeah. Stop on a high note, man. But what I also love about that is what you did with Ava can also be the same script to follow when it comes to like romantic relationship. I think about times in my past where I've been in a romantic relationship where my partner's been upset for whatever reason. And then like, I'll do the metaphorical shaking, you're okay. You know what I mean? But I've failed to do what you did, which is the calling her up later and being like, hey, did that work for you? Did that feel good for you? And by the way, the door is open to tell me at any point in time if like, I don't meet you where you need me to in the future point. And like you said, it took weeks for Ava to come to you,
right? But
like giving her that permission and how scared she still was as guys who are working on our inner games to be able to recognize and ask for feedback about how we showed up, what our partners need, what our kids need, what our parents need, whatever it is, whoever we're dealing with, our employees, whatever they need, and then to keep that door open. And then when they walk through that door, to not go back to our old patterning and be like, no, this is what I was doing. Like you almost did with Ava, but like instead to say, thank you so much.
Right.
You know, I know what it feels like to feel that way. One of the things that came up for me as you guys were going through this, Bryan, you said sometimes it's hard to articulate the benefits of inner work. One of the things that came up for me was when it was in my pre-inner work days, every decision, every emotional situation, every challenge was solved from my neck up. Right? It was an intellectual game. Everything was thinking. And my God, like the grind, how much energy expenditure it took for me, because I couldn't feel into what was needed in the moment. Like Keith, your story about Ava and holding her when she was scared of the monsters in the closet, because like you actually had access to your feelings, could feel that all she needed was to be held. And then 90 seconds later, problem was solved, right? One of the other elements of that is, for me personally, I haven't been able for most of my life to allow or receive praise fully, like a job well done. Like guys and people would tell me, hey, you're doing a great job with this. And I'd say, thanks, man. Those words really mean a lot to me. But like from the neck down, they would bounce off of me. I couldn't feel it. This past weekend, I was blown away by a gesture from men in our Facebook group who went through this like 6-week program that I did on powering up your purpose and productivity. It's this free course that I did for guys around the world. And on Saturday morning, I woke up to an email that was completely unexpected from a guy in the group. His name is Cam Fink. He has many talents, but one of his things is like he does videos for people, like for their branding, their marketing. He had solicited video testimonials from about a dozen men in the Facebook group who went through that experience. And these 12 guys from like the United States, from Australia, from the United Kingdom, from the Netherlands, did these like thank you videos about how the work had impacted them in their lives over that 6-week period. And when I watched the video, for like the first time in a long time, my armor was off around my heart. And I could fucking feel, like truly feel the praise and the recognition that these men had given to me. I could feel the impact that it made on their lives. And like there were tears coming from my eyes, you know, like I was stopped and like the rest of the world kind of went away. And it was interesting. It was amazing how much detail I could feel from their experiences. Like I could see where they were. I could see the books on their shelves. I could see the tattoos they were wearing. I could hear their accents. And it all hit me in such a remarkable way that the rest of that day, I was able to bask in that recognition because we're out in this world busting our asses to be the best version of ourselves, putting in fucking effort every single day. And to have a moment in time where everyone pushes pause and looks at you and recognizes you for your effort and says, dude, I'm inspired by you. Like to actually allow that in, I had no idea how much I needed that.
Right.
And my tank is so fucking full that like I'm ready to plant sequoia trees worth of like commitment for these men to building a hub, a home for all of us to go through life together, you know, to build a journey together for not just like the next few weeks, but like years, decades, lifetimes together. Like that, it was that powerful. Have you guys experienced what I'm talking about where it's like you get all this praise and it just kind of bounces off of you? And then maybe a moment in time where you experienced praise and recognition that it actually, you allowed it in and what that meant to you?
Do you guys have any idea what that's all about? Because I completely connect to everything you just said. And even just moments ago, you guys were like, wow, Father of the Year. I go, well, I fuck it up plenty. Like,
Sure.
Why would we deflect something that is so beautiful? What in this, in our minds, why wouldn't we want to take in a compliment or praise like that?
I've been guilty of that. Or I wouldn't even say guilty. That was just my modus operandi. Like, that's how I would receive. And the difference that I feel when I'm in my head is that it's a passing moment. It's like, I feel it. Thank you. You're welcome. You did great. Awesome. Move on to the next thing. When I started down this path of inner work and I opened up and I stayed in that moment, I call it staying in the boat. Like, stay in the boat when somebody's there. Connect when somebody's there. And when I do that, when I allow that in, it energizes me. So Dominic, you're talking about like growing sequoias, right? There's a difference between growing a sequoia and a rock skipping across the pond. And when I feel that, it energizes me. And I believe that that's part of our life force. I believe that actually appreciation is one of the superpowers that if organizations brought in more often would really drive us to bigger and better places if we let it in. Yeah, man, I totally feel what you're saying. And as guys, it's so easy to dismiss.
I mean, Keith, to answer your question too, like from my perspective, I was raised to be super humble. You know what I mean? I think about like one of my favorite football players growing up was Barry Sanders. Anytime you get to the end zone, he was one of the few guys who instead of spiking the ball and doing a celebration, he handed it to the ref and walked off the field like, I've been here before. And there's a certain merit to that. There is something that's valuable about that. And then the other end of the extreme is like, someone catches a 4-yard pass and then does like a huge dance of celebration. Like, look how amazing I am. And there's that arrogance. So there's very few like examples in between of like, how do you appreciate, recognition? And again, like one of my greatest teachers in that regard is my sister, Mary. When she puts together one of her crazy outfits, like she loves to wear, my sister Mary has special needs and she's this beautiful, like walking ball of love, right? She loves wearing ridiculous outfits, like pink, rainbow colored, gaudy things from head to toe. And when you tell her she looks beautiful, she blasts you with the light from the sun. Thank you. Or you buy her something like a bag of Starbucks. She'll send you pictures for the entire week of like all the Starbucks that she's drinking. It's kind of like letting you know how much she loves your recognition of her. And what I've recognized is how amazing that makes me feel.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so I just keep bringing her more recognition and praise because she just blasts it right back at me and it feels great for both of us. One of the things that I just did in response to that video that those guys did for me is I filmed a 4-minute video back. And I was like, guys, I want you to know the impact you had on me. And I was like, because I've been working on receiving praise and receiving recognition. I didn't realize how much I needed it. You guys cracked my fucking heart open. My entire day on Saturday was spent just basking in that and then recognizing how special what we're building here is. And I want you guys to fucking know, like we're building 10 million men here. You're the first 300 guys. You can say that you were one of the men who built the foundation. And this video was like a key cornerstone of laying bricks here because you have just given me the gift of wanting to pour my heart even further into this community. And now they're commenting on that post like, whoa, I had no idea. Thank you for showing me how it's done. Maybe I should start to bring, more recognition to the people who have told me that I'm doing a great job. So I think it's learning how to embrace it because it's true. People wouldn't bring it to you if not. And then learning how to give it back and letting people know. This is what I said. I was like, guys, this is my love language is hearing how much this work is impacting your life. And when you let me know the wins that you're having, the conversations you're having with your spouses or the men in your life or your kids, when you tell me how much this is impacting you, then I will go back to the lab and I'll build you my best because I need to know it. And then now we've entered this reciprocal relationship where we can make each other better. That feels extraordinary to me.
Beautiful.
I'm just glad your love language isn't touch because that would be a different thing in a men's group altogether. Yeah.
Well, then speaking of touch, one of the cool conversations that's just started in that Facebook group also was there was a man who came into the group and said, listen, guys, this is a kind of a vulnerable thing for me to ask, but how do you express affection between like the male relationships in your life? Because for the last 8 months, I've been in quarantine and the only like person I have access to is my 13-year-old son. And I've been loving on him, of course, but I'm feeling a hunger and a craving to embrace the men that are in my life. But I know that a lot of the guys in my life are really like sensitive to touch. There's a lot of, latent homophobia around that. Or if we do, it's just kind of like a hug with the crotches out hug and like a baby burp pat on the back. What do you guys do? And it opened up a pretty cool dialogue in the Facebook group about guys who have like really learned how to have mature expressions of masculine affection with one another. Before I go into like what I saw in the thread, how would you guys answer that question?
Yeah, me and my crew, we're huggers. My father was a big hugger. He gives me a giant full embrace bear hug, kiss on the cheek. And my friends are all that way. So I've always been a fan of that embrace. It's energizing. Even my buddies will kiss each other on the cheek. We'll watch TV and just kind of have like an arm around each other or something. Like we don't have any boundaries, from that regards.
Are there any friends in your group who find that a little bit weird or uncomfortable?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. There's a couple guys in there that do not participate in that way. And the hug feels a little more awkward with them, and they've always been that way, for sure.
Have they expressed it? Like, have they communicated with you about that? Or is it just kind of like a, we don't go there type of thing?
Yeah, no, I think it's just understood that guy just, he's not down with it. And that's just the way it is.
Is that reserved for your friends, Keith? Or do you like meet somebody on the street and you're like, boom, hug, kiss?
Yeah, I'm hug kiss out of the gates, kind of guy. Yeah.
It's aggressive.
It's
loving. It's lovingly aggressive.
Lean towards.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm a hugger, like what's his Vince Vaughn in Old School. He's like, I'm a hugger. Get in here,
My idea of physical affection. Do you guys remember the Bash brothers, Jose Canseco and Mark McGuire, when they both played on Oakland?
Sure.
Of course. Yeah.
They would like hit a home run. They would hit their forearms together, and that was they were called the Bash brothers. And I feel like I learned physical touch in sports where you're hugging for a reason, and it's often quite literally chest bumping, right? It's a quick hit.
Yeah.
And that translated into the rest of my life with my guy friends. Like either it's like a fancy handshake or a fist pump but I wasn't like you, Keith. I had zero kissing and like no real embracing, no real hugging. Now that changed almost exactly 3 years ago, where Dominic introduced me to this group called A-Fest. We went there and they had someone there teaching literally the steps to a perfect hug. I thought it was fascinating, and I'm not going to go through like the details right now of the perfect hug, but it was awesome to learn that. It's been awesome to teach that to other guys, and I've learned that you have to be very careful who you embrace like that, because I came back from that trip. I was at an event. There's a woman I hadn't met yet, and I just stepped in for this big embrace, this big hug, and she could not have backed away sooner. She goes, no. She goes, I don't do that. I don't do that. I don't hug. And it was ingrained in me just over a 4-day period that like we're huggers. This is what we do. And so then I had to learn the line of asking for permission, making sure somebody's okay with it. But that said, Keith, I am like more like you now, where I love the big hug. And I notice it when somebody gives it back to me, it feels so good.
Totally.
Yeah. Let's break this down for a second, because like one of the things that was so helpful about that hugging exercise that, was seeing all the forms of like poor hugs. You know what I mean? They did the one where it's like the corporate hug where you kind of get like the chests, their crotches and their asses pointed completely out. So like there's no danger of those two parts touching. It's kind of like the pyramid hug, right? And then they show the one like the baby burp hug, which is like what a lot of guys do. It's, you come in for like a really quick aggressive embrace, and then you like, it's more than a baby burp. It's almost like you smash the guy in the back, and that smashing him on the back is like we're still dudes. You know what I mean? Like we could still embrace and still be dudes.
And also the indicator for, okay, we're done. It's over.
Yes. It's 2 quick booms.
Right. Your arm in between, right? Because you like grab each other and then you have your arms in between blocking a little more distance, right?
That's like, even more.
The handshake then into a half a hug,
Yes. Yes. So that's even further like removed. What they taught us with that hug was, how you typically go over a person's like, I forget exactly the choreography, but you tend to go over like a certain shoulder when you give someone a close hug. They teach you how to do the opposite. So it's a heart to heart hug. Your heart actually touches the heart of the other person. So you're going over like the I don't know which shoulder, but it's the opposite of what you would normally
I
do.
feel like I go left. Where do you guys go?
It would be to your right, that person's left is the proper heart-to-heart way.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And then they teach you, now this is not what I do with my guy friends, but then they teach you, like, you hold it and then you actually synchronize a breath a few times. So you take like a deep breath in and then you exhale, another deep breath in and then you exhale. So that's a great embrace with like a romantic partner or like a close friend that you want to do something intimate with. And sometimes even with like a guy who you just feel like, man, we just had a moment and we want to like lock that in. And through that experience, I think Bryan and I both kind of had a chance to look at like our nebulous fears around holding that kind of space with another guy. You know, it's like, man, I've never been this close with another man. And am I gay if I am this close with another man? Because like, you know, the three of us who are in our 40s now grew up in the that's gay generation. And we talked about this with Dr. Miles Spar, and, you know, Dr. Miles, who's in our mastermind, who's also a gay man, talked about this with us in one of our recent podcasts, where it's like, as a young guy growing up, the worst thing you could be was a gay dude. That was like what I was taught growing up. And even though my parents like taught me how to be super accepting, and I had a sister who was on the fringes of society, so I understood what it was to be accepting and empathetic, and I embraced other people's choices, I still couldn't be gay or do gay things because that would get me ostracized from my group of friends. So that carries forward into these, like, my willingness to be close to other men physically or emotionally. And when I finally started to break that shit down, especially when it came to hugs, man, I realized how powerful it was, Bryan, in our men's group, right? Like when I would go through something emotional, to then be like wrapped up in 7 guys' hugs, to be like, I got you. You're strong. We can carry you in this moment. What do you need from us? And to recognize how different that felt from a woman's hug, which is like very nurturing and caretaking and maybe like, you know, softer to a certain degree, to feel like the strength of a masculine hug not only gave me the strength, but it also helped me to become more aware of when I hug a woman or who's in an emotional situation, like what I'm bringing to her in that space and how powerful that feels for her. So I think it's important for men to have that conversation around, like, are you letting men into your life? Can you let men into your life in a deeper way through these different forms of physical touch?
There's a biology to this too, Dom. If you remember, one of the reasons that the hug, you synchronize your breath for 2 full breaths, is because it's in that amount of time that our hormones start to change. And there's a new sort of connection. The oxytocin, right, is kind of created in that moment.
Yeah, that oxytocin is a bonding agent. So like mothers and babies, the reason why breastfeeding is so powerful is because there's a release of oxytocin in the mother that creates that chemical bond, which is another one of those things that happens when you do eye gazing. If you've ever done eye gazing, it's just sitting across from a partner, whether it's your romantic partner, or we do a lot of this in men's work also to remove that invisible barrier that men have with each other, standing just like inches apart from one another, gazing into the other person's eye. When the discomfort passes, when people stop like, you know, shaking or laughing or distracting, then the oxytocin releases, and without a word, you can like feel connected to the man across from you just because there's that chemical connection with each other. That's powerful.
It's a real beautiful experience, that eye gaze. And then I remember similar to Bryan, like you went on a hugging spree after your A-Fest hugging. I went on an eye gazing spree, you know, I was probably the weirdo, you know, trying to make eye contact with everyone because it was such a magical experience.
Outside of the red container, that is a very creepy thing to do.
Yeah. Exactly.
That goes to like, these conversations need to be had, because like if you spring these upon guys without them knowing it, they'll have the adverse effect, like the opposite effect.
Yeah, right.
You'll get a touch. It won't be a hug. Dominic, you were at Andrew and Jamie's wedding down in Mexico a couple of years ago now. And when I was part of the wedding party, and as we were all getting ready, I met, it's my friend Andrew, his father-in-law. And then he's got 3 sons that were all part of the wedding party too. And one of the sons came up to me and gave me one of these quick hugs. I'm like, nah, man, we got some time. We're going to learn this. And so I taught them all how to do this A-Fest, the perfect hug. And it was awesome because by the end of that trip, every time we saw each other, they're like, come here. And it became a new type of bonding, which was really cool. And then other people saw, like, why are you guys hugging? I don't understand. Like, why are you hugging so long? And it allows us to tell the story about the perfect hug. And like, who doesn't want to know how to do the perfect hug? It's a great skill set to have.
I love that, man. One other thing to add to this mix was, this was something that I learned through the Facebook thread, was there was a man on the thread who said, one of the things that I do to satisfy my need for physical touch was Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, right? So if you've ever learned about Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, you do a lot of grappling. It's a lot like wrestling. Well, I don't want to say it's a lot like wrestling, but if you've never done Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, it may look like wrestling to you, right? So guys are on the ground grappling with each other. And this man was saying, basically it's really powerful for me to feel the force and strength of another guy and to listen very closely to the muscle twitches, because where the next move is coming from. You go through this dance with another dude that gets you to know him and him to know you at a whole other level. And so there are a lot of guys in my universe who do practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and they swear by it. They love it. It feels like super masculine. They feel powerful. They learn how to defend themselves. But what I hadn't heard was that it satisfied this craving for interpersonal connection with another guy. So there's all these different forms that we can do to bring more closeness to other men in a really mature, masculine way. I want to offer that up to, if you're a man who's listening to this episode right now, the Facebook group has started to really become kind of this hotbed for conversations that don't happen elsewhere. You know what I mean? These questions around physical touch, or what happens when you feel lonely, or, I'm a father who's just trying to struggle through making these best decisions in a quarantined pandemic environment. What the fuck do I do? Bring your questions there, because I'm seeing some of the most thoughtful, intelligent, beautiful responses that I could have hoped for when we created this group. Keith, as we wrap this up, one of the things that I recall quite vividly is that, you were the guy that gave me the confidence to start the Great Man Mastermind, because you and I had talked so deeply about, hey, we've been on our individual personal development, inner work paths for quite some time, but we were longing for a group of men to do this in community with, not over a short term, not over a weekend, but over an extended period of time. And you were the guy who put a stake in the ground and said, I'm in. And all I needed was to know that one other guy was in before I was ready to do this and pull the trigger on it. And as we close out this conversation today, I just want to know, what's it been like for you over these last 8 or 9 months doing this in community? And how's that been different than, doing what you've done over the last 3 years kind of on your own, in your own individual journey?
Yeah. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, for me, my passion, what gets me going, what energizes me is connection, with others. And so it's been really challenging to be on this journey on my own. I've been craving the interaction and just this conversation. This is everything to me,
Yeah.
And in the outside world, I have a core group of friends. They're not my next door neighbors. They're scattered around. So my everyday friends, you bring this kind of stuff up and sometimes you just get a blank stare and, okay, let's just go have a beer. Let's forget about that. So finding a community that this is what people want to talk about has been huge for me. I mean, the Great Man Mastermind that I'm part of with you, 20 men, to have, 19 other men who want to talk about this, can talk about this and help me develop. I can help them develop. It's been everything. I've been in groups before, but they're, limited. And I've had the experience of seeing men talk about these topics and being vulnerable in front of other men. And where I would have been very nervous to do that, I see them and I'm so moved. I'm inspired. I connect with them and I look at them like, wow, that was amazing that they had the strength to say that. And I'm like, wow, they're in pain too. It's not just me that's confused by this shit. It's not just me, hurting and wondering, is there a better way, So that camaraderie is everything to me, and having a home for it now, it's the best. I love it.
The being in community, I think whether it's social media or typical groups, we're really good at sharing our wins. And what I've seen in this group is that we're really good at sharing what is real and what's really coming up.
Yeah.
And Keith, one of the most powerful interactions that I've had with you, and I'm grateful for it, is when I didn't show up fully for the push-up challenge. You were one of the first guys to say, dude, I wanted to after we did the final test, I wanted to high five you and embrace you and be like, this was awesome. We did it. And you didn't show up. And typically I would say if a friend did that, fuck that guy. right? But you did it in such a way that made me realize that by me not showing up at my best had an impact on other people more than just me. And it's that kind of feedback, that kind of community, because I had to be in that kind of community and setting for me to really hear it, has been really powerful for me. And I thank you for it.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that.
What I love about that is because in a community, you're going on a journey together and it's longer term. So you can call men forward in things like that where you know, like, hey, we've got a lot more work to do here together versus if like you're just kind of in some non-committal relationship where it's like, you know what, I could say something, but maybe he will get pissed off at me. And what's it going to matter? You know, like we're just kind of here for recreation anyway. But like this community is about like you becoming the great man. Whatever community that you guys who are listening at home have created for the men in your life, that's the benefit of having something that's longer term in nature is like you can have the boldness to step in and let another guy know, tell another guy the truth about how he's showing up in his life and give him that benefit so that he can show up better in the future. The three of us here, like I've been on the receiving end of you guys calling me forward. We all have. And that's why it feels like our growth is on it's such like a supernova pace. This past year, like all three of us, what we've all done in this past year, like it's been extraordinary in terms of our growth. And that happens because we're with each other. So thank you guys for being such a, an integral part of my life.
You're welcome. And
there it is. That was so well done. You just, that was like a full body. If you felt that in the heart, that was nice.
That took effort.
All right, it is now time for you to take action from something that you learned, an insight, an aha moment that you heard from our discussion today with Keith Bracci that you can implement in your life right now. Today, this week, right after you get off the podcast, what is one thing that you can put into practice right away? And as always, you heard this from Keith, one of the best ways that you can give back to others is by coming into the Facebook group and sharing what your insight is, what your win is, or asking men for help on breaking down an obstacle that you have right now in your life. The Facebook group is the Great Man Within podcast. It's for men only. So come on in if you're not a member yet. Request approval, post your question or the action that you're going to take, and we'll see you in there.